Today's video is for all the women that watch my channel, and men are very welcome to watch this too, but it's specifically aimed at women today. Are you a woman watching my channel who struggles with self-expression? And I think we've all been there, myself included. Definitely in my 20s, I really struggled to express myself. Today, I want to talk about a really powerful and incredible link between self-expression through your voice and your sexuality as a woman and your sexual organs as a woman. And there is this anatomical, linguistic, neurological, emotional, psychological link. So I'm going to be talking about all of that today and how when we're disconnected to one, the other will follow. So we might not be aware that our voice is shut down, but maybe we're aware sexually we're shut down. Or maybe we know our voice is shut down, but maybe we're not really connected to ourselves sexually. So maybe we haven't really linked that. But I guarantee if one area is disconnected, it's going to impact the other. And that's what I want to talk about today, because this gives you a new way to work on your voice, to open your voice, to free your voice, to reclaim your authentic voice. And as I said, this is specifically for women because we're going to be talking about the female sexual organs specifically today and how they are connected to your throat, your larynx, your vocal folds, etc. But before I get going, my name is Anuska Taylor. I release weekly videos on all things voice related, specifically around the speaking voice. Although I am a singing teacher, I'm also a singer myself. I trained as a singing teacher initially. And my focus really with people and what makes me different to your average voice coach is looking at the psychology, the deeper unconscious drivers that are impacting your voice. Because most of the time, most coaches out there are just working on the surface. Your voice is weak, let's strengthen the voice. But we've got to look at unconsciously, why would you want a weak voice? And there's always a payoff. There's always an emotional payoff. So that's really what my work is about. If you're interested in learning more, please do check out the links below. And of course, if you enjoy this kind of content, please do consider subscribing, like the video, leave a comment. I love to hear from you. And it really also makes a massive difference to getting my videos out to more people. So let's talk about today's topic then. And first of all, I just want to share a book which really inspired this video today. Highly recommend it. It is a very scientific read. I'm just going to warn you. There's a lot of fascinating information in this book, but it is very scientific because it's written by a French laryngologist, Jean Abbott-Boll, and it's called The Female Voice. And it's a brilliant book. And he is the one that just opened my world to the link between the voice and the cervix specifically. Because what he discovered was when he looked at cells on the vocal folds and the cervix, they were very similar. They behaved in a very similar way, meaning whatever's going on in your voice is going to be impacting your cervix. Whatever's going on in your cervix is going to be impacting your voice. So your menstrual cycle, if you've got premenstrual tension, if you're perimenopausal, if you're menopausal, all of those hormonal shifts are going to impact your voice and how your voice feels and sounds. So I had noticed this for a long time as someone that's been singing most of my life, and I do regular voice training, regular voice work with my own voice. I've become very attuned now to knowing when my period is about to start, because I definitely noticed a thickness and a heaviness in my voice. I felt that it was just harder to access my range. Before I read this book, I just thought maybe it was just me. But actually, when I read this book, I realized that is actually what happens to a lot of women. It's just often if we don't really have an intimate connection to our voice, we don't even know. So just start to notice if you are a woman that has a menstrual cycle, just start to notice if you notice changes to your voice throughout the month when the hormones are shifting. It's really interesting. But as I said, he goes into it in a lot more depth, certainly the science behind it. And he also talks about perimenopause and menopause and how that impacts the voice, because obviously there's a lot of hormonal changes going on there too. So definitely a really interesting but scientific read. So when we think about the throat and the larynx and say the vagina and the cervix, they are both intimately connected. And even at the most basic level, we know this. If you think about women that give birth, and midwives know this, that often if they're trying to help a woman give birth, they will get her to make sounds to open her throat, to really soften the jaw, to release the jaw, because there is this connection between the jaw and the pelvis, the throat and the cervix. So we know that there is this connection. Midwives know this. Women who are giving birth know this, whether they're conscious of it or not, that the more they can release their voice and open their throat and soften their jaw, the more the cervix will open. And it will be a less painful experience than when you are tense, stressed, and anxious and in a lot of pain. So both of these organs then respond in a very similar way to stress, to anxiety, to feeling unsafe, to feeling threatened, that they tighten, they clamp down, and then we might experience pain, and we might also just experience a lack of freedom and a lack of openness. And we probably all experienced this with our voice before. When we feel anxious, when we feel scared, the throat will often tighten, the voice might get squeaky. We don't feel like we have that freedom with our voice. So you're not imagining this. This is all very real. It's this incredible body that we live in, and it's just trying to protect us, which is why I say all the time to everyone that your vocal habits, which are not helping you, so a throat tensing is not going to help you speak with power, is really designed to protect you and keep you safe. But it's also the same with our cervix, with our vagina. It's all about trying to keep us safe, because these are both entrances into our, whether we're going through our mouth, into our throat, or the other way, it's all entrances into the body. And so it's the body's way of trying to protect us. So that's the first thing. But I think on some level, we all know this, but we perhaps haven't connected the dots. So let's talk about the 5 key ways that the voice and, let's say, the vagina, just to keep it simple, are intimately connected and inextricably linked, because they really are. So first of all, I want to share an illustration that I found, and I'm sorry, I don't know who to credit for this because it's a really beautiful illustration of the larynx next to the uterus or the womb, because I want you to see how similar they look anatomically. So first of all, having a cursory glance of these images, you can see how incredibly similar the structures look anatomically. It's quite incredible. And you don't have to have any knowledge of what you're even looking at, but to see there is similarities there between the larynx and the uterus. So they're both narrow muscular structures that act as like a gateway or a sphincter. So the vocal folds will open for breathing and close for voicing, and the cervix will open for childbirth fully. It will open somewhat when a woman has her period, but most of the time it's closed to protect the womb from infection. So they both have very protective roles, and they both also have very powerful roles as well, because one helps us to voice, one helps us to create sound and feel empowered to express ourselves that way. And so with the uterus, then we have those muscular contractions either to help us give birth to a child or even for orgasm. So these are both very powerful organs in a woman's body. The other interesting thing is the word cervix comes from the Latin neck. And of course, the larynx lives in the neck. So there's that sort of linguistic similarity as well. So just start to think in your own body of these connections between your throat and your larynx and your uterus and your vagina and what's going on down there for you. And I can guarantee when you start to think about it, you'll start to see some connections. And of course, as I already mentioned, the cells of the vocal folds and the cells of the cervix are incredibly similar. And they've looked at them under a microscope. They look very, very similar. And essentially, they both have a menstrual cycle. So, as I said, whatever's going on at the vocal fold level will be impacting the cervix and vice versa. So let's talk about some other similarities as well. So the neurological connection is via the vagus nerve. And I've actually done a whole video on the vagus nerve, so I will link that at the end. But essentially, the vagus nerve is also known as the wanderer, because it literally wanders around almost the entire body. It's the longest cranial nerve and it innervates the larynx and the vocal folds. In fact, it's absolutely essential for voicing. If that nerve gets damaged, say in surgery, you are going to struggle to speak. So it's essential for voicing, but that nerve runs all the way down, they now know, to the womb. So we have this nerve connection between the larynx, the vocal folds, and the womb. So in terms of self-expression, then, you might have noticed as a woman that, and you have to be really honest with yourself here because it's not something that most people are going to know about, and maybe it's not something you share with anyone, maybe your closest friend, probably your partner, but it might also be something that you keep to yourself, that you really struggle to express yourself sexually. You struggle to ask for what you want, to say no to things that you don't want. And there's a real sort of disconnect between your voice. It's like your voice sort of shuts down when it comes to your sexuality and sexual activity. Now, I know certainly in my 20s, I had this for sure. It was like I couldn't speak. And I just was so terrified of expressing myself. I don't even think I knew who I was, what I wanted, what I could have. So there was all of this stuff that was wrapped up in it. But I definitely felt that this total disconnect between how I spoke and my sexuality. Certainly in my 20s, I found it very difficult to express myself. And now, of course, I do this research and I do these videos, and it makes total sense. So think about in your own life, where do you struggle to express yourself, particularly when it comes to your sexuality, to your body, to how you feel about your body, what you want, what you like, what you don't like, what you're willing to say no to, yes to, etc. All of that is linked to your voice. And that can have profound impact on our sense of safety and feelings of stress and anxiety. So it's all kind of linked. And that's why I think this is such a powerful and important link to make in your own body as a woman between your voice and your sort of sexuality. In a very physical sense, then, as already mentioned, if you don't feel safe, the voice will shut down, but so will all of your sort of sexual organs. They will tighten as well. The cervix will tighten, the vaginal wall will tighten, everything will kind of tighten and shut down to protect you. It goes into protection mode. So it's not an accident that this is all linked. If you resonate with this and you're struggling with your voice, you're struggling with self-expression, and you find it hard to communicate yourself in your day-to-day life, what I want to invite you to do is start to explore this from a different perspective. So first of all, physically, notice if you hold a lot of tension through your hips, through your lower back. Maybe your pelvic floor is weak, and start to do some exercises to build strength, but also open and release that part of the body. Pilates is brilliant for pelvic floor exercises. I do a lot of yoga now. I used to do a lot of Pilates actually, but I now do a lot of yoga, which I find is brilliant for hip opening, also for throat opening, for chest opening, all the parts of the body that we usually shut down. So find something that works for you, even if it's just stretches, and start to sort of maybe take the pressure away from your voice and start to focus on this kind of hip pelvic area. Get some movement, get some blood flow, strengthen, release, and open, and see what happens to your voice. Also, as we spoke about the jaw hip connection, as I said, I've got a video on the jaw, so maybe do some jaw massage. If you know you've got tight hips, start to work on releasing the jaw, because we can quote unquote attack this from different angles. But then emotionally, maybe start to explore your relationship to sex, your relationship to your sexuality. How easy or not do you find it to communicate what you like, what you don't like in a relationship? How comfortable are you with your body, with who you are as a woman? And all of this, so it just starts to open up other doors, because you might not be aware your voice is shut down, but sexually you feel quite shut down. Or maybe sexually you know that you feel quite inhibited, but maybe you're not really noticing so much the inhibited self-expression in your day-to-day life. But there will be a link. And often when we can kind of open the door on one, it helps us to open the door on the other. And that's really what I wanted to share today, that we can attack, quote unquote, not literally, the voice from these different perspectives, both physically and emotionally, and just start to bring awareness and curiosity to, as I say, your relationship with your body, with your sexuality, with your ability to communicate sexually. And even if you're not in a relationship, what is your relationship like with your female body, with your female sexuality? And start to journal on it, start to meditate on it, and really think about this, because there will be a connection, but you might be quite unconscious to it at the moment. So, obviously, if you've had any sort of deep sexual trauma, it could be a good thing to work with a psychotherapist around this, but hopefully you might already be on this path. But if you want some support with this and you're resonating with today's topic, then you can book a one-off 60-minute session. The link is below. And until the end of July, so you've got literally the rest of this week and next week, you can book a 2-hour private masterclass with me for £500. I'll put the link below for that as well. We can certainly explore this, because remember, your connection to your sexuality, your connection to your body as a woman, and your ability to express yourself sexually is very intimately connected to your creativity. When you work on your sexuality, you're actually opening the door to access more creativity as well. They are intimately connected too. So this is why it's all connected. It's all really, really fascinating. And so sometimes if we're struggling with one area, we can attack it and approach it from a different perspective and really start to slowly open and transform our relationship with ourselves and our voice. And just remember, the voice is a full body instrument. You can't just focus on what's going on in the throat. You've got to think about your whole body. And that actually includes your cervix and your vagina, etc., because it's all connected, your hips, your pelvis. So I hope this has been really interesting, a bit of a different topic today. I'd love to know your thoughts, your comments. And as I said, if I can support you with this, please don't hesitate to book a private session. But I will see you on next week's video.